Hello, welcome to the second GCA seminar on helping the greeting card industry navigate trade post-Brexit. That's with international partners both in and out of the EU. Thank you very much for all the questions that you've sent in. We've assembled a team of experts this afternoon to actually help follow up on all the issues that you've raised, and there will be the opportunity to send follow-up questions after that, but hopefully we can cover off everything that you've sent in to us. Let me start, if I may, by introducing our panel, and I'll work around our screen. Emily, could I ask you to introduce yourself first, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Amanda. So my name is Emily Lambert, and I'm a trade advisor for the Department for International Trade down in the Southwest region. And at the minute, I'm involved in a pilot scheme called the Export Academy, where we are training small companies on a range of different topics to do with export to help them to boost their international sales.
Thank you. Tom?
Hi everyone, my name's Tom. I work for the Department for International Trade. Also, I work in a team called the e-exporting team, which is pretty much the e-commerce branch of the Department for International Trade. We were set up around 5 or 6 years ago now with the sole aim of helping UK companies to export online. So that's me. Great
stuff. Thank you, Richard.
Hello everybody, I'm Richard Asquith. I'm VP of Global Indirect Tax. For the past 30 years, I've spent most of my time not talking to my children or family, but reading VAT legislation and customs rules. And for one brief moment in my life, suddenly everybody wants to talk to me and hear what I think about all these changes. So hopefully I'll be able to do a little bit of that for you today. The other side of my day job is the company I work at, Avalara. We're a VAT technology company, so hopefully I spend all my time explaining some of the changes we'll be talking about to our really super clever technology engineers, and they try and automate as much as they can, although even they're struggling to keep up with what's going on. Thanks.
Thank you, Richard. David?
Yeah, David Faulkner from Cardology, hopefully a familiar face to most of you, not least from conversations we've had at shows. I think my kind of interest in this is we've had an interesting year, I think, pandemic-wise. It's been challenging, I think, for all of us in terms of trade sales, but the one big change that's happened over the course of the year is the direct-to-consumer sales. For us, we're now in a position where for the past 12 months, our direct-to-consumer sales will outstrip our trade sales by nearly 24 times. Absolutely huge. Some of the changes that are coming in on July the 1st that we're going to be talking about have a profound impact on our business, arguably bigger than the January the 1st ones. And it's against that context it's really great to be having a call like this and being able to participate in the discussion about what those changes mean to my business and also to yours.
Thank you, David. And John?
Hi, I'm John Welsh. I've been all my life in this industry one way or another, and 25 years ago I decided to stop being a publisher and start working on the distribution of greetings cards for other people. We've got some brilliant clients, Dan's one of them, and Brexit is just one of a number of things that we try and face and sort out the distribution logistics side for our customers.
Thank you, John. And finally, Daniel.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniel Prince. I'm the Managing Director of Dallin & Promotions. Our business fundamentally is business to business, but we do a little bit of business to consumers, so interested from both sides. I'm also a member of the GCA Council and the Treasurer for the GCA. So my interest is both from down the low and the GCA side of things.
Thank you, Daniel. Your volume is a little bit muted, just to let you know. It's a bit quiet. And finally, my name is Amanda Ferguson. I'm CEO of the Greeting Card Association, but I have been in this industry for 30 years, mainly on the publisher side. So I'm also wearing a sort of, I can wear a publisher hat because I can, appreciate many of the challenges that you are facing navigating these new waters. So let me start, if I may, with a question that we've actually had in from many of our members who do supply orders for across Europe. Historically, they've sold to consumers in different countries and you know, without problem. But many of them have stopped doing this post January the 1st, which is obviously you know, concerning to us as an industry. And as this question says, you know, I want to get started, but where can I get help on this? It's so complicated. Tom, could I ask you to start, please?
Yeah, sure. It's a good question. I think sort of my main purpose of being here today is to plug a little bit of the support that is available from the Department for International Trade. I think we often speak to businesses, and a lot of the time at events, or when there used to be events, people weren't actually aware that there was support available to them from the department. And in particular, the team that I work in, like I said before, is the e-commerce team. So I thought I'd just touch on a few of the different types of support that is available. So for my team, like I say, was set up a few years ago with the sole aim to help UK companies to export through online channels. We kind of have 4 key services which some of your members may be able to take advantage of. So first of all, we partner with marketplaces around the world. So obviously there's marketplaces can work really well for greeting cards companies. And we partner with, I think, around 50 different marketplaces now. A lot of the time that means it might just be a human relationship that we have and help UK companies unblock certain seller issues. And in some cases, it might be that we've negotiated some special deals that UK companies can take advantage of. So that's one of the services that we have. We also have a tool called Selling Online Overseas, which I think we're sending out a follow-up email, aren't we? So I think if we can put some information in about that.
Please,
that's basically
that would be good.
Yeah, no problem. That's basically a marketplace finder where people can put in a bit of detail about their business, and we'll recommend some marketplaces. We also run really great promotions with marketplaces to sort of help UK brands get a bit more exposure. And then finally, sort of our main service, one of our main key services, which I think is probably the most important and the one that businesses probably don't know of some of the time, is that we do have a network of e-commerce advisors who are located around the UK. And what they do is they help businesses one-to-one with their e-commerce needs. So something like this, to take it as an example, the changes that are coming up in July, our e-commerce advisors, along with our international trade advisors, are very well equipped and very well connected with the likes of Avalara and Simply VAT. So they can field those questions. And as I say, it's a free service that UK businesses can take advantage of. So yeah, and so to answer the question overall, what help is available? There's lots of help available, and it's just a case of getting in touch with your local DIT office. And like I say, we'll put some more information in the follow-up email about how to do that. And do get in touch with an e-commerce advisor if you haven't already.
That's brilliant, thank you. And I know Emily's going to talk a bit later about some of the other services the DIT offer. So that's brilliant, thank you. So David, I don't know, did you want to add anything to that question?
I guess just I mean, first of all, to strongly reinforce what Tom said, I think some of the support we've had from DIT has been excellent. The bit I'd also say is, look, nobody's saying it's as easy as it always was. I think everyone recognises there are problems. There are also opportunities. One of the main ones are consumer sales. So overnight on January the 1st, there was the removal of VAT up to €22 for sales out to European consumers. Now, what that means is that if you are effectively selling a £5 card, you have 80 pence more profit in it for you. Now, there are certain thresholds you can't go above and things like that that make it important, but there is a real opportunity for D2C sales across Europe. That's coming to an end shortly. But there is an opportunity to do that. Now, what we've done on the GCA Brexit blog is we've actually put a list of places you can go to get additional links like this, similar to the ones that Tom's mentioned. And that's a really good point of call. Just to remind you, that's www.gca.cards, and that's /Brexit updates December 2020. So I would encourage publishers, if you're looking for a kind of industry view, in conjunction with going to DIT, do have a look at that to kind of ensure you've got an informed conversation.
Thank you. And we'll add the links that everyone shares with us and information after today. We'll add it either into that blog or there'll be a link on to further information. So that's the key, so thank you for mentioning that. Emily, can I just come to you, because one of the things that we were talking about was the customs procedures for the EU, and we had a question about changing the Incoterms I'm using with clients. Could you just talk about that briefly, and then maybe we can go on to a bit more detail?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a question that we're getting quite a lot as part of the Export Academy. People are maybe not so familiar with Incoterms, and they might have been supplying goods to their customers using an Incoterm known as delivered duty paid, DDP. So Incoterms, for anybody that's not familiar with what that is, it's basically a set of 11 rules which are internationally recognized, and they are describing the responsibility between the buyer and the seller throughout the shipping process. So who's doing the export from the UK, who's doing the import into the sort of destination country. So you need to kind of be aware of the different terms that you are using, and educating yourself on the different ways that you could configure that relationship. So, for example, you might be selling something into Germany, and before the 1st of January, you didn't need to worry about the import process into Germany and any duties or tariffs that applied. But if you're selling under those same Incoterms now, there's a whole bit of the process that's kind of added into your responsibility. So that's why they're kind of so important, and that's why people are thinking a bit more about Incoterms currently.
Thank you. And now I know we're going to talk later about paperwork, and John's going to help us with this a bit, because it's really important to have all this properly documented. But before I do, could we just come on to VAT? And could I ask you, Richard, to explain, because there's a lot of changes coming up in July, aren't they, which is going to affect all of this. Could I ask you just to sort of talk about that a bit, please?
Yes. So the European Commission is introducing something it calls the e-commerce package, which is it's got a few objectives. Trying to make VAT for businesses simpler to operate around the European Union, selling to consumers, and mostly consumers, because it's seen as the biggest single barrier to cross-border trade. Also, it's trying to expunge VAT fraud, which is a big problem, particularly from traders from the likes of China as well. And lastly, it's trying to make tax collections a bit more efficient. So whilst the reforms are complicated and there's lots of things, lots of loopholes, and it's not the tidiest way to have simplified European VAT, there's a lot of good simplifications coming on the 1st of July. And just if those of you that are familiar with what happened in the UK on the 1st of January, it brought its own version of this in. You'll be familiar with the headlines. And the big things are, and I think I've heard some people touch on them already. Number one is if you're selling B2C from the UK into the EU, currently you're allowed to sell in without any import VAT if the goods are below 15 or not exceeding 22 euros. And so you'll be familiar with the £15 equivalent that we had here in the UK. That's number one. The good news is from that, then you're going to have to charge VAT in your checkout to any consumer for any shipments, and I would imagine this applies to all your transactions, but any shipments, consignments that do not exceed 150, that don't exceed 150 euros. I can't imagine many of you are selling a lot of cards B2C above that. So that is a complication, but the good news is there's a new type of return. It's called an IOS, Import One-Stop Shop, and you'll be able to just get registered once with the IOS and then complete all sales reporting through one country in the EU. So from that point of view, it's relatively straightforward. There's lots of other reforms. The one other that I'll call out is if you're selling through marketplaces, then if, again, your transactions, you're selling to consumers and you're shipping the goods into the EU and they don't exceed 150 euros and it was on a marketplace, then the marketplace becomes liable for your VAT. It's really quite complicated the way the EU's done that, but you don't need to worry. Because it's the marketplace's responsibility to spot these transactions and then deal with the VAT and communicate to you how to report the VAT on your end. So there's a quick oversight of what's coming on the 1st of July. It is a bit complicated, but once you've come to terms with it, come to grips with it, it's actually good news.
Thank you. So just so much to clarify, if you are selling from your own website and not on a third party marketplace, you are responsible, aren't you, Richard? Is that right?
Yeah, that's the big change for any sale now below any consignment not exceeding 150 euros. For the first time, you can't just rely on your customer to pay import VAT at the border. You can't give it to FedEx and get FedEx to collect the import VAT. You now, as a seller, must charge effectively sales VAT in the checkout, and that's where there are complications. And I suspect we'll get a few questions about how to manage that. The good news is, as you can imagine, you can automate it all now, and there's lots of solutions around. But yes, I think that's the big first challenge to overcome. And the reason for that is there was just so much fraud going on, people not charging VAT properly on their websites in the past, or abusing the thresholds, etc.
Richard, would you mind just very briefly overviewing as well how the kind of OSS and the over 150 euros model works, because I think that will be important to some of our larger members as well.
Okay, yeah. So if your consignment is above 150 euros, then you continue as today. It's up to you. You've got several options to manage the border taxes. So first up, we'll probably come to customs later. It's important to say or explain why it's 150 euros, why that magic number. And the reason is that's the customs exemption as well. And it's customs authorities that will police all of that. So you're going to have to think about customs duties there. But on the import VAT side, you've got a couple of options, exactly as you have today. You can either charge VAT, Greek VAT or Spanish VAT in your checkout. And I think, as Emily was saying, you can take responsibility for paying over that VAT to the local authorities, be VAT registered. And the reason for doing that, obviously you're taking on some bureaucracy in a foreign language, which is never fun. But what it does mean, it's a great customer experience. And if you're already going through the iOS experience that I just mentioned, getting VAT registered, then it's worth going all the way just to, as I say, to get great customer experience. And I think, just as a post-Brexit point, it's important for UK businesses that they can replicate best as possible the pre-Brexit experience to avoid losing out to, let's say, European competitors in other territories that don't have to worry about all these Brexit import VAT changes. So that's the, in answer to your question, David, that's over 150 euros. You mentioned OS. Now, OS is, it applies around distance selling, and it was related to, there's two parts of it that you need to think about. Number one was Brexit on the 1st of January, and number two is the new changes coming in on the 1st of July around distance selling. So very briefly to explain distance selling, because it's a very important business model for many of you. Let's say pre-Brexit, you were selling your goods from the UK to consumers in the EU. Under the distance selling thresholds, you were allowed to do that under your UK VAT number under certain annual thresholds. Each country had its own threshold. They're simple to remember. Most countries, it was 35,000 euros, or still is. And for a few countries, Germany, Netherlands, and Luxembourg, it was 100,000 euros. As you can imagine, it was a really nice, easy way for you to put your toes in the water of selling into some countries without getting bothered about VAT registration processes. Once you're over those thresholds, you need to be VAT registered in the local countries and filing returns and charging local VAT and paying it to the local tax authorities. Now, unfortunately, one of the consequences of Brexit was UK lost those distance selling thresholds. So your choices there are, as I was saying earlier today, You can let your customer pay the import VAT, which isn't a great experience. You can get VAT registered yourself and charge the VAT in the checkout, or you can do a POA, a power of attorney, so that your customer is still importing the goods from a legal point of view, but you'll pay the VAT via your freight forwarder, for example. Now, sorry, it's very difficult to answer any VAT question quickly, but getting back to David's point, the 1st of July changes mean, or one of the parts components is a new type of return for distance selling within Europe. Now, within the EU. Now, what does that mean? And a lot of people have adopted this model post-Brexit is they've shipped their goods into a rented warehouse, let's say, somewhere in Europe. They've cleared the goods through EU customs and any duties, etc., so that when they do make a sale, the goods can flow straight through to a customer. If you're working on a marketplace, you're going to have done this. The marketplace will have insisted this. Now, the good news is there's the second type of return that David's mentioned that's coming in on the 1st of July. It's the one-stop shop. It's OS. Let's take an example. You're a UK business. You want to clear your goods into, let's say, the Netherlands. It's popular location, good transport, good customs clearance procedures. You can get registered in the Netherlands for OS, and then you can happily sell around the whole of Europe, effectively just reporting into the Dutch tax authorities through an OS registration. It's a simple one return. You list all the different countries you've been selling to. You have to charge their VAT rates, but you still just declare it through this simple return to the Dutch authorities. They then take care of allocating all the VAT that you pay them to the different territories through a mechanism. Right, as I say, be cautious about asking me questions, if you want to get off this call at any time before 3 p.m, but that's OS.
Could I just follow up though specifically on that? The question I guess I was asking, which was around, so can OS be used for sales of over 150 euros, or do they have to be declared in country?
No, they're not related. I think you may be mixing up iOS and OS. So iOS, I'll try and answer both scenarios and then you can correct me. So if I'm selling from the UK into France and Germany, I've got a customer there now. As I said, 1st of July, I must charge French and German VAT in my checkout. I must show the customer the German VAT rate at 19% or the French VAT rate at 20%. Then I've got to pay that VAT somehow over to the authorities. The good news is iOS, Import One-Stop Shop, enables me to, let's say I pick Germany. That's going to be my country of identification, nominated country. Then I just do the return once to Germany. iOS will be monthly, and I can report both my German and my French sales. So that's why it sounds complicated, but once you get to grips with it, and I've only had 2 years to get to grips with it. I've been part of the consultation and the review legislation, so I just about understand it now. But once you get to grips with it, these new requirements, the EU's done a good job on simplifying it. Does that help, David?
Massively, for me.
Thank you. I mean, I think if we can just sort of turn to some of the questions we've had in now. I mean, with regards to iOS, Import One-Stop Shop, is there a pro or con? Is there a specific country, Richard, that you'd recommend people register in?
That's a great question, and there are two. Yes, there are, and there are two criteria I think you should think about. Number one, ease of registration and language barriers. That's registration is the hardest part of all of this. It always is. We always recommend Ireland, obviously, because of the language. They've got a wonderfully simple VAT regime, very, very flexible. They're very, very accommodating. And so always think about Ireland. The second one is there is a requirement that you should pick the country that you're importing into most. I have no idea how the European tax authorities would monitor that. So I'm not sure if that's you should be worried about that too much. I suppose, sorry, just tracking back on myself on the first criteria, simplicity. The other big reason, I suspect why this question's being asked, somebody has done their homework, is in certain EU countries, there is a requirement for you to appoint a special type of VAT agent. Those of you that have been doing VAT registrations for a while, you'll have heard of a fiscal representative, and they share your VAT liabilities. They're the neck that the local tax authorities can go and strangle if you disappear with their VAT. Now, as you can imagine, as a result of that, those fiscal reps, they really do charge a lot of money. They want all kinds of bank guarantees. In the case of IOS, they have a different name. They've rebranded them because fiscal reps sounded as popular as the European Super League, I think. And so they're called intermediaries. Now, the intermediaries, depending on which country you pick, are also liable for your IOS VAT. So again, pick a country that doesn't require the intermediary to be liable. And guess what? Ireland. So Ireland, and Ireland. Now I think about it, maybe you should all ring up Ireland, open brackets, Richard Asquith VAT Services, close brackets, Limited, a company that will shortly be opening up. Mates rates.
Thank you. Another question on countries. What's happening with Germany and Netherlands? Both have said that they won't be ready for the 1st of July, apparently, this member says. Does this mean that we can't deliver to these countries using ISOS? And will we still have the current issue of import tax handling fees? How does it work?
The short answer is don't worry. For IOS, they will be up and running. Those of you that follow this, the Germans and the Dutch have been moaning about, there's always somebody moaning about EU reforms, and they said their IT wouldn't be up and running. In fairness, COVID is a good excuse for everything at the moment, and these reforms are actually already delayed once. They were due 1st of January this year, and they got postponed to 1st of July. They definitely will not be postponed again. I think the Dutch and German problems now are they've admitted it will just be related to them parceling out your money to the various tax authorities. So the Germans will, in the words of Father Ted, the Germans will have some money resting in their accounts for a little while.
Okay, thank you. I mean, do you think this transition is going to be smooth? I mean, are you expecting similar problems to those that happened at the beginning of January?
Well, someone who works for an IT technology company, I'm always the first to say that technology always works first off correctly every single time, especially when governments are involved. There's never a fault. I think, the answer is anything to do with VAT is just do your bit, try and calculate it correctly, report it correctly, and most of all, pay it on time, and then you're in a good place. I think most of the tax authorities are fairly flexible, and COVID has really relaxed them as a bunch of individuals. So I do. We've already had a dry run to this, something called MOS, which any of you, for example, if you're selling cards digitally, digital designs and delivering them that way, you may have been using that already, and that went okay. So I'm optimistic.
Good news, thank you. We're jumping around a bit on the questions. If I could just look at go back to my list again. In which EU country, and I think Richard and Emily, maybe both of you could help us on this, will a B2C customer be located for VAT purposes? For example, and this is obviously someone selling off their website in the UK, somebody in France buys a card, but they want it posted to somebody in Holland. So where is the VAT paid, and what's the rate of VAT? Because obviously it's different in both countries.
So the answer, one of the golden secrets or principles to VAT is look at where the goods start from and where they end. and where they end is the important one, because VAT, it's a consumption tax, so it's all about where did it end up, where was it used. Use and enjoyment is one of the terms we like to use. So in that case, it's the Netherlands. That's where the goods are going. And I mean, you can imagine why we do that in VAT, because otherwise people would start playing funny games, trying to arbitrage the different VAT rates, pretend they're in one country that's got a low VAT rate, but actually deliver the goods to another country that has a higher VAT rate. So wherever the goods go to, so Netherlands.
That makes sense. Thank you. Emily, did you want to add anything there, or have we covered that, I think?
No, I've seen Richard in action before, and I'm very starstruck to be on the same panel as him, to be frank. So no, I was interested in his answer. The only thing I would kind of sort of make a point from a strategic point of view for smaller companies, because that's who I've been kind of dealing with for the last couple of months as part of the Export Academy. And what I would say is to try and focus on a couple of markets and to understand what you're doing in one market, rather than trying to go across Europe straight from the beginning. So it's the most common mistake that we make, that people are trying to work everywhere. So just start off in a more sort of focused way. That would be my only addition.
I think that's sound advice, and I think from what you've told me about the Export Academy, you know, that really does help people getting going for the first time. And this may be a lot of our publishers and retailers who are just doing small B2C orders at the moment. Do you want to just say a little bit about the Export Academy?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Export Academy, it's a series of 10 webinars. It's free. It's aimed at companies with a turnover under 500,000, so smaller end of the spectrum. At the minute, it's available in what the government's terming the sort of levelling up regions. So the Southwest, the Midlands, the North, and it's just started in the east of England as well. So if you are based there, then you are Academy, and I would strongly recommend that you do it. We're covering things like Incoterms that I was discussing earlier, customs procedures, pricing strategies, writing an export plan. So certainly one that I'd encourage your members to have a look at if it's relevant to them.
That's great. And if I think you said you'd kindly share some information on this, which we'll put in the blog so that people can find out how to access this. Thank you.
Great.
Richard, can I just finish off on some of these VAT questions before we move on? I've got another one about reporting and the currency. The question is, as we will be reporting periodically to VAT authorities in an EU country, we will need to report in euros. Must we price in euros too, or can we price in pounds and then convert the figures to euros when we report?
That's right. It's effectively when you're reporting. So let's say we've picked Ireland. You've got to report in euros, even though you may have been selling in pounds. Although I'm thinking this through. I'm going to correct myself in a second. But anyway, you can. You've got to use whichever country you've nominated. So we've said Ireland. You've got to use their conversion rules. Ireland's pretty straightforward. You just have to use publicly available, I think it's Bank of Ireland exchange rates. I think though, and why I'm going to correct myself is one of the complications of the new EU rules, and the UK, remember the UK's enforced this too from 1st of Jan, is that you must show in the checkout, you must show the amount you're charging and the VAT rate of the country of your consumer. So that's going to have to be converted. What Ireland would do though is like the UK, they have a similar system. They'll publish a rate and they'll keep that rate fixed for the month. So if you just upload or stick to that rate for the month, then you'll be okay. So it's not difficult to plan around actually. So yeah, sorry, I had to correct myself halfway through that.
Okay, so just so that I understand, you know, people are going to be having to put variable tax rates on their websites. Is that right? At the checkout point?
Yeah, well, yes, in that you must know where your consumer is located, and you must declare to them the VAT that you're charging in the checkout. And that is that's the tough part of these reforms. You know, you're effectively into a live calculation. What you're not allowed to do is what most people do today is they will just quote, let's say, £100 or €100 for any sale. And then only when they do the VAT return, they'll work backwards to calculate the VAT that they should have charged. So they'll say, right, this person was from Germany, so I'm going to charge them 20%, 19%, sorry. Or this person was from Hungary, so I have to charge them. I have to take off my my £100, the 20%, 27% equivalent. You're not allowed to do that. I think, and I know the next question will be, well, how on earth do we do that? Because that's quite complicated. Well, you should know where your customer is, because obviously you've got postal address information or credit card information, something approximating their location. And all software packages, e-commerce packages, will be accommodating this. So one of the things we do at Avalara is we support lots of the big e-commerce packages providers who most people on this call, I suspect, have licensed their software to build their sites. And if not, if you haven't done that, then you can use Avalara. Other tax software companies are probably available, but you know, they're a bit shady. Stick with Orange. But you can get an integration into your package. So it's absolutely not as daunting as it sounds.
Okay, thank you. Tom, do you want to come in there? Because I know you're in regular contact with these online marketplaces.
Yeah, I think hopefully everyone can still see me, because all my videos have gone black. I can't see anyone, but there you go.
We can
I
see
think
you,
Richard covered it quite well. Oh, good. I think Rich covered it quite well. I think probably we're talking about the likes of Shopify and BigCommerce and those guys. So if they're in conversations with the likes of Avalara, the functionality will be there. Marketplaces that we work with, there's not a lot of guidance out there at the moment, but I'm hoping to get some stuff out on the follow-up email about what they're going to implement to handle these changes. So yeah, for now, I think that's probably look out for the follow-up email from this session, to be honest.
That's great. Thanks, Tom. And certainly we'll keep our members updated as we receive information from you. You know, we'll keep putting it out there. So thank you. I've got a couple of other questions on VAT before we move on. Richard, can I ask you, will there be a charge by the EU resident intermediary to use them for ISOS on top of the import tax they'll be collecting when the report is sent to them?
Yes, intermediaries haven't reached charitable status yet, I'm afraid. There will be. They're effectively a VAT agent, and as I was saying earlier, you know, definitely avoid the countries that there's fiscal rep associated with it, because you'll end up paying a lot. Avalara, we're an intermediary. We're a fiscal rep service as well, but we're an intermediary. So so if you do need help, you know, we're the sort of firm you can reach out to. There will be a cost, I'm afraid.
Okay, no, thank you. So, I mean, just to clarify then, all British-based businesses registering for ISOS will be required to appoint a fiscal representative, won't it? So, does the requirement vary from country to country, or is that just it?
Yeah, it's for IOS, it's called an intermediary. It's,
Right.
as I said, it's a rebranding of the fiscal rep, and the requirements are slightly more relaxed. So intermediaries are sort of cuddly fiscal reps, if you think of it that way. And as I say, the big difference on intermediaries from country to country is if you pick a friendly country, sort of Ireland and where else, Germany, then your intermediary won't be directly liable for your VAT. So therefore their fees should be, you know, a bit more sensible and practical for you. They're not, obviously it depends on the amount of trade you're doing, but it's definitely not prohibitive. It's not like the old days of VAT. When I started out, it was pretty shocking the amounts that agents would try and charge. And you know, remember, the good news is you just need one intermediary will cover you for all 27 member states. So it's not like today where if you're selling from the UK in lots of countries in the EU and you've got lots of VAT registrations and perhaps VAT agents, a lot of these simplifications will do away with that. So it's, again, just to repeat, you know, once you get to grips with these changes that look complicated, it's very good news.
Thank you. Emily, do you want to add to that?
No, I think Rich has covered it pretty comprehensively there.
Okay, great stuff. Thanks. With regards to customs handling charges, we are still yet to find anywhere official that says how much each country charges and how each country deals with their customs processes. I think we've touched on this, Richard. Is there anything you can add to answer that specifically, please?
Well, I'm, you know, I'm boring enough being an expert in VAT without taking on customs, and my wife would never tolerate that. So but that doesn't stop me giving my opinions on customs. So I think if you're asking about tariffs, etc., there is the EU Commission has a really good tariff table. So if you just look there, then you can look up your products there. It's similar. I'm sure most of you have come to grips with the UK's global tariff website, which is pretty good. I think if that was the question, how do you come up with the tariff? Tariffs are the same all across the European Union's customs union. So I think it's 31 countries are in the customs union now.
Okay, no, thank you. Well, we'll look and find that link and add that to.
I think if we're talking about tariffs on cards, predominantly because we covered a lot of this last time, the good news for most card publishers is basically it's 49090040 greetings cards, and most of those are 0%. So unless you're adding value add to your cards or selling different product groups, and there are some, Daniel, I dare say you've got a few that are outside that scope, but generally we're a safe industry from that point of view.
Great, thank you. So Richard, I've got two more VAT questions, if I may, please. How can I register for VAT in Germany if my business is based in the UK? Again, I think we've touched on that, but just to clarify for this member, if we can.
Yeah, you can, whether it's today you need a VAT registration or when you want to do an IOS registration or an OS registration, which we talked about coming in 1st of July, you can contact the German tax authorities. They are semi-friendly, I'd say, to English language. They're not that bad actually compared to some territories who won't pick up the phone no matter how loudly you shout at them in English. It can be tough, or I would always inevitably, I would suggest getting an agent, especially for the new IOS and OS, because you only need one agent for the whole of Europe. And the registration process depends hugely on the country you're going to. Some of them really do make you climb to the up a greasy pole on the dark side of the moon on Wednesday afternoons only to get VAT registered in their country. It feels like that, and others like Ireland are very, very flexible. But what they'll ask you for is some basic information about your UK company, maybe an extract from company's house, directors' passports, that sort of paperwork stuff, and proof of your UK VAT number.
Great. And do we need to be registered for VAT before we can use that country's IOSS portal to register for IOSS?
That's a really good question, because often with the launch of a new VAT requirement, despite what I said earlier about them always working, sometimes they don't always work. And so everybody says, what do I do? Because I still want to sell, but I don't have my German VAT number yet. So the answer to that is you can sell if you get your application in, and what you should do though is top up the price for the VAT. What you absolutely must not do, don't get caught doing this. I mean, don't do it. I don't mean do it and don't get caught. That is don't say you're charging VAT on your invoice or in your checkout if you don't have the VAT number. Just don't do that. Don't go there. Just add on, 20 euros or something onto your €100 charge to cover VAT. So quote an inflated gross price is what I'm saying once you've got your application in.
Thank you. We've spent quite a lot of time on that, but we've had so many questions on it. I really appreciate you taking the time to answer them, Richard, Tom and Emily. Let's move on. We do have some rules of origin questions. Many of rules of origin was covered in quite some detail on our original Brexit discussion, but these two I'd just like to bring up, and Daniel, I'm hoping you can help me here. Actually, several members have contacted about a new requirement to have their business address printed on the back of cards for the UK and Europe as part of the post-Brexit trading agreement. Is this a requirement? Daniel, do you want to just help us on this a bit, please?
Yes, certainly. Hopefully you can hear me better now.
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Great. Firstly, I wanted to state that we've contacted the Goods Regulation team at the Department for Business, Energy and Industry Strategy over the past 3 months for clarification for this, both directly from the GCA and also as a greeting card publisher. We are still seeking further details and expect we'll have more clarity on the position over the next few months. As it stands, there is no actual legal requirement to currently have your UK or European address on the back of a greeting card. However, it does appear that by the 31st of December 2022, you need to ensure your details are fixed to the product, or in circumstances where legislation allows, on the packaging or accompanying documents. We're seeking further clarification on this, so please wait until this is fully confirmed. I am aware of a number of publishers who over the past year are now including their UK address on their cards, and I would recommend doing this going forward for cards you publish. As it currently stands, we've been told that you must comply with this regardless of if the goods are CE marked from the end of December 22. One thing that is clear is that if your goods are CE marked, they need to have an EU address on the product or label from the 16th of July 2021. It's unlikely that there are many greeting cards that are CE marked, so this really shouldn't apply for greeting cards. The reason for this address being needed is that the customs and market surveillance authorities can have a contact person in case their product is suspected to present a risk. Again, extremely unlikely for greeting cards. I would definitely say it's one to watch this space, but as it stands, if there is a legal requirement, it will only be from the end of December 2022. But as a publisher, you will need to factor in time for the change.
Thank you, Daniel. Yes, so to sum up, if you've got badges on children's cards, you need to get your address on the back. But we, the GCA, and as I said, Daniel, we're both seeking clarification on this, and certainly the messages we've had back at the moment from central government is that it is unclear, but nothing before December 2022. Sources of origin are quite important. So just to clarify, one question here, which I think we know the answer to, but again, Daniel, if you could just make sure everyone's clear on this. We sometimes print large quantities in China or Europe. Sometimes we apply glitter or a component from abroad. Can we still put made in the UK on the back? We can't actually, unless it's 100% made in the UK. Is that right, Daniel?
Yeah, to clarify, there's two types of made in UK logos. There's the 100% made in UK logo, and there is the made in UK itself logo. So to qualify for the 100% logo of the made in UK, the product needs to be entirely produced in the UK. That means everything from all raw materials, design, planning, packaging, labelling, and labour. So every component for this product must be made in the UK to be the 100%. To qualify for the made in UK, it's slightly different. The product needs to be manufactured in the UK using UK and imported materials, with at least 50% of the production carried out in the UK, including all materials and components. The product may or may not need to be designed in the UK to qualify for this made in UK. If you wanted to add the official made in the UK logo and use the accreditation, you would need to contact the Made in UK organisation to join as a member.
Thank Thank you, thank you. Just still on that theme, Emily, could I just ask you, certificate of origin, when is that required? Because that links into this.
Yeah, so a certificate of origin is something that's issued by your local chamber of commerce, and that's a document that's confirming the origin of the goods, as it kind of says there. But it's not every country where this is going to be a requirement, and some places use it a little bit more than others. So, for example, India, it's quite often that you require a certificate of origin. Arabic countries as well, you might need an Arab British certificate of origin, and there's quite a few companies asking this question in relation to the trade and cooperation agreement and wondering if they're going to need a certificate of origin with their goods, but that's not the case under the trade and cooperation agreement. You just need to do something called a statement of origin. It's a bit of text that's going to accompany your goods rather than needing that formal certificate. So yeah, don't worry that you are necessarily going to need a certificate of origin. It could be that your buyer needs it for some reason, but unless you're asked, don't worry.
Great stuff, thanks. One quick origin question to finish off with, and then if we move on to logistics, if we may. I seem to have found myself in a crazy situation where not only does my EU trading partner pay duties from China into the Eurozone, then I pay them from Germany to the UK because the country of origin is China, and then my customers in Europe pay duty when they import our goods. Surely there are 3 lots of duty being paid. That's not right. Can you ask our experts? I mean, firstly, I think we should say that actually greeting cards are duty free, but obviously if you've got other products in that, duty may be applied. David, do you want to just help us on this, if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very similar to a question that Jed and Michael fielded on the last call, very much talking about kind of import VAT and the kind of the duty relationship. And unfortunately, unless the experts have different views, my understanding is this is exactly that. So you're going to have to pay it at each and every stage. And obviously, as a responsible business, you're then going to look at options available to you. One of those is the option that Richard talked about earlier about warehousing in Europe. And the other is looking at your partner in Europe and actually how critical they are to your supply chain at the moment, and whether there is a direct relationship with the Chinese supplier. That might be something that you now need to look at.
Great stuff, thanks. John, I don't know if you're able to come in here because, you know, really it's about paperwork, isn't it? What can we put on the paperwork to ensure that my customer doesn't pay duty? I mean, that's been asked by, again, more than one.
Okay, thanks. That's a heck of a question. This is about learning a new language. I think we've heard this from Richard, and we've heard it from Emily as well. And we've all got to get to grips with a new way of using words. And in our world, and especially working with creatives, I have to say, they're not always the best people at trying to be pinpoint sharp on every legal definition or every line that's needed in a piece of documentation. So this is a new world. It will get better. It feels very crazy at the moment, but it will get better. So I think I've got 2 things to say about trying to get the paperwork right. One is follow the rules to the letter. That's really, really important. Even if you think they don't make sense, follow the rules to the letter because they're there for a reason. And the second thing, which is completely counterintuitive to that, is expect the unexpected, because it won't always work as you think it might work. So to explain what I'm going to say about that, it's really critically important that you follow the advice that's on the Greetings Card Association website, plenty of other places, and we'll happily provide it to people, which is go through your processes, have a look at your product, make sure you know what product it is. If it's not greetings card, what type of codes do you need for it? Make sure you understand your country of origins. Make sure you've got your RIORI numbers. Make sure you've found out the reasons you're exporting the goods. You know, it's quite simple. We all think it's quite simple to say it's firm sale, but it is firm sale, but it might be samples, it might be something else. And critically, and Emily talked about this, get the Incoterms right. I think Incoterms is probably one of the biggest features of getting your process right and getting to a position where your customer in Europe doesn't end up with an unnecessary set of bills. It's not a matter of just making it up yourself. You've got to agree with that customer what it is. I've been shipping goods abroad for 25 years, and we've always thrown terms like FOB and X works around, because in the olden days, somebody walked up and bought 10 pallets of goods from you and collected them from your factory and took them to America. And that was simple. It's now just so much more complicated. And these Incoterms, particularly the ones at the end of it, which is the ones that leave most responsibility with you as the publisher and the least level of responsibility with your buyer, which is where we're trying to get to, I think. And these are terms like, DAP and DDP, delivered at place and delivered duty paid. There's critical differences, but you need to know what they are and you need to make the right decisions about it. Now, on the unexpected side of it, I think what you've also got to bear in mind is it's time to leave behind some preconceptions about the way in which your transport systems work. So don't get locked into the idea that one particular carrier is the carrier who's got the answers. We've stuck to that model for the last 25 years. We've had a small number of carriers, but in Europe at the moment, I'll go with anybody who works on the basis that the carrier of choice is the carrier who can deliver the goods successfully. So don't stick with somebody who isn't working. Be prepared to shop around. We use, and I'm quite happy to recommend them, we use Parcel Monkey, who are a broker, and they find the best priced carrier to any different European destination for you. You can see what the costs are up front, and they walk you through the commercial invoice process in a way that is really simple. We're happy to walk you through it if you've got more complicated jobs, but I would say study the rules. Please take real care about getting the line detail right and be prepared to shop around for the best carrier.
Thank you, John. And I know you've helped your customers. You've held their hands through this and kindly have said that any GCA members who need a bit of help could contact.
That's absolutely true.
But I think.
Sorry, can I just also say, I think the significance of what Emily said about going step by step is critically important in this. Don't think that you can get it all right on day one. Get it right in France, and that's fine. Be really pleased about that. Then get it right in Ireland or get it right in Holland. Don't expect it all to come right in one go.
And it does get easier, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Eventually.
But I think, we said this last time, and, you're not alone with this. Talk to your supply chain, talk to the people you're selling to, talk to the people who are delivering for you. And as our experts have said today, there's plenty of other advice and help available. So, don't worry. It is doable, but it just needs a bit of application and thought at the beginning. So just to move on, we've got 3 last questions, which if we can whiz through quickly, and then we'll just sum up. We are having a lot of problems exporting to Germany and Ireland, especially. We have parcels stuck en route after several weeks, couriers applying additional charges. We are a business turning over 5 million a year. We've been exporting both B2B and B2C for many years. What advice does the panel have to overcome these problems? Daniel, I don't know if you are able to help us on this one, please.
Yeah, definitely. From a download perspective, I wanted to share some of the experiences that we've had. Initially in January and February, we definitely had some major problems in shipments to Europe, but thankfully things over the past month have definitely eased, and we've had a lot of successful shipments with very few issues. One scenario that we did have that just only came up last week was simply we shipped goods at the end of December to a customer in Europe, and we only recently found out when we sent them a bill to pay and they hadn't paid that the goods were still sitting in customs and they hadn't received the goods. So we then quickly found the solution and the goods were cleared and delivered to the customer. So the key thing is going to be communication with your customer at that stage, making sure they actually do receive the goods. For the majority of the B2Bs, there are 2 types of export customers that we deal with, which is either distributors or retailers. Working with distributors has definitely been the way forward, as they are becoming a lot more aware of the correct paperwork, working together, arranging the collections and ensuring the smooth paper trail and onwards delivery. We recently had a problem with a retailer in Europe who didn't want to be the importer of the goods and thus liable to VAT and duty. So we ended up working on a solution with one of our European distributors to manage this process. And again, that has worked well. Obviously, it goes without saying, there are now additional costs for exporting, but there are solutions in place. But to be clear to everyone, it will be a lot more expensive. We've obviously worked very well with John and his team at 2WL. And John, I don't know if you want to add any more about how it's going currently.
Thanks, Daniel. I think the answer is it's a really mixed bag. There's some customers who are able, by virtue of scale or organisation, to make great progress, and there are others who, quite honestly, despite our best efforts, are throwing their hands up and saying, "I think I'll just leave this for 6 months and see what happens." I don't think that's the right approach, and I think, as you're saying, you have to keep experimenting at it, and it is. You won't get the right solution necessarily first time. So don't stick to a model that isn't working. Have a look, find other ways of approaching the problems. You know, our link will be on the end of this Zoom call, and you know, Matt, our MD, or I are quite happy to give tips and advice to anybody about other ways of approaching it. Thank you.
Thank you. Export forms, Emily, if I could just ask you to help us, and John, I'm sure you'll add to this. This question is, despite filling out our export forms with the commodity codes, etc., our courier delivering shipments to our customers in Ireland are requesting surcharges, which are 35% of the order value. And I know this has been in the press, this has affected quite a lot of people. There's no detail as to what these charges are for, and it is having a negative effect on our business. It's been incredibly difficult to get further information. What recourse do we have against our courier? How can we contest these charges with them? And is there an industry standard process? Emily, I don't know if you can help us with that initially.
Yeah, I mean, I can't give you legal advice, but I can tell you, you know, as you say, Amanda, and as Danny mentioned, this is something that a lot of companies are talking about at the minute. So this company is not on their own, and I completely understand the frustration, particularly if you're not getting good communication from the courier that you're dealing with. You kind of have to bear in mind at the same time that couriers are also struggling with all of the new kind of rules and regulations and understanding what's happening on the ground and communicating that appropriately. So I'm sure whoever asked the question is trying to work with the courier to get an understanding of why the charges have been applied. But to kind of throw some ideas out there, it could be import VAT had been applied. It could be that there were tariffs applied, or a customs handling charge might have been applied by the customs authority in the country it was going to. It could have taken a long time to process the goods, and there ended up being a storage fee. So try and unpick what's happened with your courier, and if you have an account manager, that would be a sort of a good route to go that way. I think the other sort of piece of advice I would give is the department. A lot of companies don't realise that the Department for International Trade, the local offices are geared up to provide you with support and to help you with troubleshooting exactly these kind of issues. So do get in contact with your local DIT office and chat through in more detail what has happened in this particular case, and they might have some better ideas about clarifying what's happened, and they'll certainly be able to advise you on the best way to proceed pertinent to that specific case. Oh, I think you're on mute, Amanda.
I am, sorry. John, did you want to add anything to that?
I think much of what I would say is what Emily said. It's completely unprecedented what's happened here. At no time that I can remember, even in the year 2000, concerns about IT collapse and whatever, at no point have international carrier companies stopped shipping parcels. And that's what's happened. you know, for much of January, some major companies have actually really been very iffy about taking parcels into Europe. And that's just something we've never come across. Even today, I'm struggling to find, and we've got a lot of contacts with carriers, I'm struggling to find people who really have a full and comprehensive knowledge of it. So whilst I wouldn't normally, you know, defend the carriers against these things, it has been hard work. I think that's the first thing to say about it. I think the second is absolutely the issue about clarity on the commercial invoice. There are still a lot of people who don't understand what a commercial invoice is, and it is critically important. It isn't the document you used to produce last year. It's an utterly new document. And if you don't get those Inco terms and those the HS codes and our tariff codes, don't get the documentation right, you are in effect giving a document to the carrier that says, charge my customer for these things. And you're doing that unwittingly. It's not what you want, but it's what you're setting up. And it's not surprising then that these problems will arise. I'm not blaming people for it, but look very carefully and make sure your documentation is absolutely 100% watertight.
Thank you. That's sound advice. We've actually overrun a bit now, so I'm just going to ask one last question, and then we'll ask our panelists to sum up. And this is an important one: grants. We've shared the information about the SME grant from government on our Brexit blog, and somebody has asked what grants are available. Do we already do some export to the EU, so understand that this grant doesn't apply for us. The Brexit Support Fund doesn't apply to us, but it does, doesn't it, David? I mean, do you want to just talk about this? And I don't know if John wants to add anything.
Yeah,
I think go for it.
Absolutely. So and again, subject to correction from others, my understanding is it absolutely does. We will post a link after this to exactly where you can go, and I think customary intermediarygrant.co.uk / is my SME, is my organisation eligible, is probably the best one to start. I think it's really worth looking at, because yes, you should be covered, but also there's a whole range of things. You know, for example, I guess Richard will be able to say whether his company and kind of expenditure that you might put in place to kind of get on board might be covered as well. There's a whole range of solutions that are well worth exploring in this first year.
Yes, Richard, did you want to add to that? Is that the case?
Yes, I believe we are. DOT's been. I'm glad to say they've recommended a few companies who have benefited, and we always mention it. I suppose, and alongside that, with you, I assume you'll send out our details, but we have a helpline stuff full of VAT people like me. There's more of me, which is mixed news for everyone, I know, but they give this kind of free guidance all day long. So use that too.
The other bit if I can come in on, it's also worth thinking about it in terms of cash flow as well as just kind of pure profitability. So some of the things I'll be looking at, and one of the big things that I've always said, for me, the single biggest thing of the changes that came in on January the 1st was the postponed import VAT accounting. So if you are bringing stuff in from the Far East, you're not paying those charges up front anymore. You've got a chance to put those into your quarterly VAT return. We should all be doing this as much as we can. It's a really, really big win for us at the moment.
Thank you. Yes, I think that's an important point to add. Thank you very much. And yes, Richard will certainly share, the details to contact Avalara and the information you send through as well on this blog, so that people can, find the help that they need. But I'd echo what David said. Do look at this grant, because it is, it's really useful. John, did you want to add anything to that?
What's been said was everything I was already going to say. I think it is a source of opportunity for publishers at all levels.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. Can I just go around the panel and just see if there's anything else before we sign off? Emily, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the only thing I would say is that, as you said, Amanda, it seems really daunting at the beginning, but it takes a long time to explain all of these things, but often once you kind of get into it, it's not so complicated. So just make the time to make use of resources. There's Open to Export. There's the Export Academy is available in certain regions. Your local Department for International Trade office can help. So reach out to all of those things, work through it sort of slowly and systematically, and it all becomes clear. It's never as daunting as it appears at first sight.
Great stuff. Thanks, Richard.
Yeah, what I would say is, despite what everyone said, just be careful which countries you pick to conquer. What we've noticed now, we're in month 4, is businesses that have come to tackle the difficulties of Europe have actually looked further afield. So they looked at the US and Australia. We've got lots of clients who say, sadly, it's now easier from a paperwork bureaucracy point of view to sell into those territories. So I'm sure our government would welcome me saying this sort of thing, but think beyond Europe now. You're learning a lot of new stuff that will open up new markets to you. So don't forget those two.
Thank you very much. David?
Yeah, I think it's been really enlightening for me, just kind of covering this whole option. The one thing I'd say, we've covered a lot on kind of what the issues the large business is going to face and larger trade orders. The thing that I'm most excited to see over the next few weeks is what Tom was alluding to, and that's the kind of work that's going in place in the marketplace. Because for those going to B2C, there is a really easy solution, which will be to sell through those platforms. And you can do that, or there are other options that are available, including selling through your own website, but that is going to need you to follow the correct process going forward.
Thank you. John?
There are always opportunities in the most difficult times.
Great, thank you. Daniel?
No, just been really good panel discussion, and I'd like to thank all the experts for their opinions, really useful. And I would say to people to go out, research, and if not sure, contact an expert for advice.
Thank you very much. And finally, Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. No, I think it's, again, I just want to echo everyone's points, really. It's been a really interesting session. I've actually learned a few things as well. I just want to plug the support that's available. I think Emily touched on it and a couple of others. If you haven't already, do get in touch with your local DIT office. I think in particular with issues around VAT, etc., they can often be very nuanced and specific to your business. So a blanket answer isn't always easy to find. So getting in touch with a local office can be a really good idea to discuss your specific issues. And again, I think John and Emily touched on it. There's opportunity. You're learning new skills that will allow you to export outside of the EU. So that is always a plus. And I think that's probably it from me.
Tom, thank you very much. Can I just say thank you to everybody? We're really grateful, Emily, Richard and Tom particularly. I know you're in demand at the moment, so we really appreciate all of you giving up your time to join us today. And also, obviously, thank you to David, John and Daniel from the card industry. We've, as I say, I've learned a lot, and we will continue to put out links and updated information to you all. So please keep an eye on our blogs and please follow up with any other questions. And obviously Richard, Emily and Tom's details and the information that they share will be available. Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.